Books and the Man, Sabin's. From the February 13th, 1920, issue of the Bookman's Journal and Print Collector. There are few names better known in the book and art world than that of Sabin. The firm was founded by Mr. Joseph Sabin, who established himself at Oxford in 1844 as a publisher. In 1848, Mr. Sabin went to the United States and bought farms in Texas and in the neighborhood of Philadelphia. 2 years later, he moved to New York City and began dealing in rare books, some of which he reprinted and published. Also, he opened one of the first auction rooms for the disposal of literary property and devoted his spare time to the preparation of his great work, Sabin's Dictionary of Books Relating to America, of which 13 volumes were completed at the time of his death in 1881 at the age of 60. And with all his other activities, he found time to edit the American Bibliophilist, to contribute to the American Publishers Circular, and to cross the Atlantic about 25 times in connection with the purchase of libraries. 3 of his sons adopted their father's calling, and one of them, Mr. Frank T. Sabin, who had been associated with his father, came to London about 1860 and established himself here. From Hart Street, Bloomsbury, he moved to Garrick Street, thence to Shaftesbury Avenue, and finally to the familiar premises in Bond Street. On one historic occasion, Mr. Frank Sabin engaged in battle with other giants of the book world at Christie's of Nelson's famous memorandum to the fleet on the eve of Trafalgar. It was written on 4 quarto leaves covered on each side with the Admiral's bold handwriting, and not a word to make provision for anything but victory. The opening bid for the most important Nelson relic that has ever appeared in the sale rooms came from Mr. Sabin, £200, and the last bid of £3,600 secured it for him. He straightway offered it for what he had given for it to the British Museum for the nation, but the trustees were unable to find the money. Mr. Sabin then promised publicly to forego all profit, provided some public-spirited donor appeared. Such a one was found in Mr. Benjamin Minoru Woolon, of Sherwood Park, Tunbridge Wells, who purchased it on behalf of the nation, with the proviso that it should remain under his control during his lifetime. An almost similar situation has again arisen, except that the public-spirited donor is still to seek. Mr. Sabin gave £6,550 for a complete series of 571 letters from Robert Browning to Elizabeth Barrett Browning. As in the case of the Nelson MS, he offered them to the British Museum for the amount he gave for them, plus the very modest profit of 10% of the purchase price. Again, the resources of the great repository of national treasures, it is a galling thought that it should be so were unequal to the occasion. From various sources, a sum of about £3,500 may be regarded as available towards their purchase, so that £3,705 has yet to come. Were it not for the patriotic spirit of the Sabins, these treasures, whose home is on British soil, would find their way inevitably to some foreign land. Mr. Frank Sabin, whose death occurred in 1915, was the original champion of the Old English color print, and it is owing to him that the fine art branch of the business has attained its present proportions. In his day, the beautiful color prints which are now so eagerly sought after were comparatively neglected, and his judgment was disputed by several well-known connoisseurs. That his judgment was correct is confirmed by the exceedingly high prices now paid for the prints that were once despised. Since the death of Mr. Frank Sabin, the business of the firm has been carried on by 3 of his sons, Mr. F.M., Mr. S.B., and Mr. S. Sabin, who represent the 3rd successive generation.